Today we're going to talk about something that I wish someone would have discussed with me years ago, and that is fertilizer mistakes. And I don't care how green your thumb is, if you're making even one of these mistakes, you could be either setting your plants up for failure or killing them outright. So let me walk you through some of the mistakes I've made over the years so you don't have to make them and your vegetables can thrive this year. The first one is overfeeding, when love turns toxic. This is by far the most common mistake I hear from viewers all the time because it's easy to do. It's easy to over-fertilize. Fertilizer companies make it sound so simple. It makes them sound like a miracle solution. Throw the fertilizer on there and bam, big juicy tomatoes. But the truth is, more is not better. In fact, over-fertilizing is probably one of the fastest ways to harm or even kill your plants. I remember way back, I was trying to have the biggest, juiciest tomatoes between a couple of my friends. And so I poured on the fertilizer thinking that was gonna make it happen. The problem was I got big, huge, beautiful green plants and no tomatoes. I basically gave them a nitrogen overdose. Too much nitrogen promotes leafy growth at the expense of flowers and fruit. And in some cases, especially with synthetic fertilizers, it can burn the roots, it can cause nutrient lockout, and lead to yellow leaves or stunted plants. So what do you do instead? Always follow the directions on the label. Less is often more. And if you're new to this, start off weak. Start off half strength, especially for young plants, and then see how they react. Keep an eye on them. They'll tell you if they look happy, then they're enjoying it. If they look like they could use a little bit more, give them another half strength dose. If they look stressed, back off a little bit. Now, some of you know that we have launched gardenguide.com, which is everything you need to know about all the plants you're already growing. And one of the things we tell you in there is how much to fertilize per plant. What plant, a tomato, a pepper, basil, they all like different amounts of fertilization. And so you can go onto our guide for free, figure out the plants you're growing, and learn what fertilizer and how much of it that particular plant wants. So I'll leave a link below, but it's pretty simple, gardenguide.com. All right, the second mistake is not watering when fertilizing. Here's something a lot of people miss. Your soil should be moist when you're fertilizing. Liquid fertilizer or dry, especially dry. Especially synthetic fertilizers, again, they can cause the roots to burn if it hits the plant full strength. The salts in the fertilizer pull moisture out of the roots, essentially burning them from the inside out. Your plants will wilt, they'll yellow, they'll just look off. Of course, again, this is mostly with synthetic fertilizer. Organic fertilizer is a lot more gentle, so if you're new to this, or if you're not, I think you should be using organic anyway, but for this reason, especially, it's much more gentle on the plants. The ingredients are natural, and they just naturally aren't strong enough to burn like a chemical fertilizer will. But watering well before and after, even with synthetic fertilizers, can reduce the risk of burning. It also just helps the nutrients dissolve and it gets them deeper into the soil where you want the roots to go. You want the roots to go deep from deep watering, and you want those to be the roots that are pulling in the nutrients. Water first, especially if the soil is dry. Apply your granular or liquid fertilizer, and then water again afterwards. Number 3 is forgetting to fertilize container grown plants more often than in-ground or raised bed plants. And the reason is every time you water, it actually flushes the nutrients down deeper. And that's in the case of in-ground or raised beds. But the thing about that is the roots can still grow deeper to get those nutrients. But in a pot, every time you water, more and more nutrients leach through the holes in the bottom of the pot. Now, you need those holes there for drainage, but unfortunately, the nutrients leave there as well. This is a citrus tree in a container, and it's doing okay, but it is starting to get yellow. I haven't fertilized in probably 2 months. That's a no-no, especially with containers. So with containers, I usually use a half strength, especially if it hasn't been fertilized in a while. I'm not going to shock it. I'm going to use a half-strength fertilizer, and I'm going to do that every other week. You could do it every week. If you want to develop a habit of every Monday, I'm going to fertilize all my containers. I really should do that. You know, with my ADHD brain, it would help me to develop a pattern. So some tips for containers. When you first plant something in a container, you want to mix in a slow release fertilizer. Now I use Neptune's Harvest crab and lobster formula and their kelp meal. There's all different kinds of pieces, sizes of pieces of the crab and lobster shells, all natural. So some of it goes to work right away, and some of the bigger pieces, they'll feed the plant over the first few months of its life. And then again, you know, I come through with a liquid fertilizer. I should do it on a more regular basis, but look, life happens and I don't. And you may not either, and it's okay, but you also want to look for signs like this saying, hey, I need a little bit of food. So throughout the season, I feed a liquid fertilizer, either the tomato and veg formula by Neptune's Harvest, or the rose and flowering. If it's fruiting time, rose and flowering formula works well for vegetables in the fruiting stage. I'll leave a link to those down below as well. All right, the fourth mistake is fertilizing at the wrong time. Timing matters. You know, fertilizing a new seedling right after you transplanted it, not the greatest idea. Again, organic fertilizer is more forgiving, but that seedling is still getting used to its new spot. And it doesn't need to be hit with anything else it has to worry about or deal with or take up right then. Like I said, slow release granular fertilizers are great for planting time because they're not going to be there and available the moment the plant gets in the ground. But no liquids and no synthetic granules that will dissolve right away. And the same goes for feeding your plant when it isn't actively growing. You're just wasting product and possibly encouraging more problems. Here's a better timeline. For seedlings, wait till they have 2 to 3 sets of true leaves and then use a quarter strength liquid organic fertilizer. After transplanting, wait 1 to 2 weeks before fertilizing with any quick absorbing fertilizer so roots can settle. During active growth and flowering, every 2 to 3 weeks in the ground, or every week with a half-strength solution for containers. Now, late in the season or during heat waves, you want to scale back on how much you're fertilizing because during heat waves, they're already stressed out. So don't add to it by fertilizing. Just keep them watered, get them through the heat wave, maybe put some shade cloth over them. And then once the heat dies down, then you can go back to your fertilizer schedule. The fifth mistake for fertilizing is never testing your soil. You wouldn't take medicine without knowing what's wrong, right? But that's basically what we're doing when we throw fertilizer on a garden that we have no idea what the soil makeup is in terms of nutrients. Your soil might already have plenty of phosphorus or potassium. It might be so acidic that all nutrients are locked out no matter what's in the soil. There's plenty of home tests that are fairly inexpensive. I'll try to link one below that take no time at all to find out what's in your soil, at least of the NPK, the nitrogen, the phosphorus, and the potassium. And usually it comes with a pH test as well. You can also send a soil sample to your local extension office and they can do the test for you. And based on the results, you can add what's actually needed and skip what isn't. So you can save money by not giving your plants what they don't need. This one step alone can reduce waste, it can save money. It's a win-win. So I've talked a little bit in this video. I've gone back and forth talking about synthetic or organic. It's going to be easier for you. And so the next mistake has to do with that. It's using synthetic fertilizer and forgetting soil life. Synthetic versus organic isn't just a health decision. It's probably one of the main decisions. I would rather use something that's organic because we know something organic and something natural is not going to go into a vegetable and then go into us and do something we don't want it to do. We don't necessarily know that about chemical or synthetic fertilizers. But that aside, it is scientifically proven that organic fertilizers feed the soil life, and then in turn, the soil feeds the plants. Long-term synthetic use can harm microbial life, reduce soil structure, and lead to nutrient dependency. Plants become junkies needing a hit every week just to keep going. It can also cause wild, leafy, stemmy growth, which looks good at first, but then you'll notice it starts to get weak, flop. Fast growth means weak cells, and those weak cells cannot support a plant's growth, especially when it comes to fruiting. Weak plants are also more susceptible to pests and disease. It's almost like fertilizer companies also own pesticide companies. So the solution is to mix in compost, worm castings, natural fertilizer, like I mentioned the Neptune's Harvest, and then mulch with straw or wood shavings or anything organic that is going to break down throughout the season and also feed the soil. Healthy soil equals healthier plants with fewer problems. Number 7 is ignoring signs of deficiency or simply misreading them. I already told you about this guy. So I could ignore this, but I'm not going to. I'm putting it on my list on my phone for tomorrow to fertilize all of my container citrus here. So we'll start with yellow leaves. Yellow leaves can mean a nitrogen deficiency. They could also mean overwatering. Now, I know for sure with our hot weather, our dry weather, and in a pot like this is not overwatered. But if you're not sure, just dig a little hole here, stick your finger a couple inches down, see if it's soppy wet. If it's not, it's most likely a nitrogen deficiency. If your leaves are purple, there's a couple of things. It could be a phosphorus issue, you're missing phosphorus, or just cold weather sometimes. If the leaves are curling up like the ones on this tomato here, it might be a lack of potassium. Most likely, it's an environmental problem. So it's either hot or dry, went from too much water to not enough water. The thing is, we jump to fertilizer immediately when it could be other things. Again, gardenguide.com is going to help you identify some of these things so you don't have to waste your fertilizer. So here's the bottom line. Fertilizer can be your garden's best friend or its biggest enemy. It all comes down to balance and a watchful eye from the gardener. Feeding your garden should be like feeding your body. Consistent, thoughtful, and tailored to its real needs. So tell me in the comments if you have fed your plants into a slump, or maybe you forgot to fertilize altogether, or just didn't. Share your experience in the comments so we can learn from each other. If you want to know a great fertilizer addition to your garden that you probably have in your medicine cabinet and know it's not Epsom salts, watch this video right here. I'll see you guys next time.